Everyone knows the story of Blood River, a battle burned into memory, a defining moment for the Voortrekkers. The 16th of December 1838, in what is now KwaZulu-Natal, a Boer Laager faced thousands of Zulu warriors. By nightfall, the Voortrekkers still stood. Their losses were few. The victory was remembered as proof of faith, of discipline, of divine favour. Songs were written. Days were commemorated. Blood River became a symbol, almost a myth, a story of survival and providence. But how many know there was another legendary battle before it? One that shaped the Voortrekkers, one that cut just as deep, one that tested faith, courage and grief in equal measure. This is that story. The Battle of Vegkop in the Free State, 16th of October 1836. A battle of wagons and prayers, of missing children and trembling mothers, of leaders under pressure, of fear held in check. A battle that foreshadowed Blood River, and yet almost forgotten. Welcome back to Lost History Files. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. We've now reached 20,000 subscribers in 9 months. Thank you so much, and let's keep it going. Do drop a comment below to keep the conversation flowing. The year was 1836. The Great Trek was in full motion. Thousands of Voortrekkers moved east, leaving the Cape Colony behind. Wagons creaked across dusty plains. Maps lay open on tables. Rivers, mountains, lands not yet known. Lands they hoped to claim. They sought freedom, a new beginning. But the land wasn't empty. People had lived there for generations. In the north and east lay the kingdom of Mzilikazi, king of the Matabele, a hard ruler, a careful one. He had built his power from the broken remnants of smaller clans. His warriors were feared, his cattle were many, and he would not give either up lightly. Conflict had already begun. There had been clashes at Vechtkop Drift in the northern Transvaal, at Rietfontein near the Marika River, far from the Vechtkop of the Free State, but close enough to taste what was coming. Cattle were taken. Camps were attacked. Tension grew. Each skirmish sharpened fear. Each raid deepened suspicion. Cattle were life. Land was survival. Both sides claimed them. Collision was inevitable. Could a moving people survive here, in a land already defended? Could wagons and prayers be enough against a force they could not yet measure? The stage was set. Vechtkop was coming. 2 days before the attack, the warning came from Betrena and Bartoing. An army was on the move, 5,000 Matabele. Not all were warriors. About a third were slaves, driven less by loyalty than by hunger, by the hope of cattle. Inside the Laager, the numbers were grim. 33 adult men, 7 boys. 1 Voortrekker to every 150 Matabele. Outnumbered, outmatched, but not unprepared. They went to work. 46 wagons were pulled into a circle. The gaps were packed with thorn branches. No one would crawl through. No one would slip inside. At the centre, 4 wagons formed a square. Skins and planks were hung over them, a shield against assegais. Then the rifles, barrels cleaned, flintstones fitted, good for 30 shots each, buckshot laid out within reach. Every man had 2 muzzle loaders. Each had a helper. Together they could keep up a brutal rhythm. 4 shots a minute. Even so, the odds were crushing. Discipline would have to be their armour, ingenuity their wall. On the morning of the attack, 15 Boer horsemen rode out. They hoped to meet the Matabele before they reached the camp. Speed and gunfire against spears and shields. The Matabele did not break. They kept coming. Too many to stop. But the charge bought time. By afternoon, the riders were back. Each man took his place. Muskets were loaded. Breath was held. The enemy stayed just beyond musket range. They circled, they tested. Inside the laager, the fear was palpable. Women clutched their children until knuckles went white. Some rocked and prayed. Some wept. Some whispered words no one else would ever hear. Some of the youngest were already gone, taken in earlier raids. The camp felt their absence like a wound that would not close. Every mother felt it, every father. Those children would never return. From the centre of the circle, Sarel Cilia's voice rose, calm, unshaken. Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you shall glorify me. The words carried across the wagons. They held the laager together. Some listened with hope, some with doubt. All stood between fear and faith. Hendrik Potgieter moved from wagon to wagon, giving orders. His eyes missed nothing. Panic would not be allowed to spread. Near the edge, 11-year-old Paul Kruger watched in silence. He saw fear. He saw resolve. He would remember this day. The wind shifted. Dust rose again. The enemy waited. Could this circle of wood, oxen and hope hold? The Matabele came in waves. They circled, they probed, they tried to tear away the thorns. They tried to cut the leather straps. Some climbed over the barricades. Shields forward. Assegais raised. Muskets roared. Volley after volley. Short bursts. Careful timing. Discipline against numbers that should have crushed them. The attackers fell back, then came again. A pincer movement. War cries. Shields pounding. Spears raining down. The wagons shifted. A little here, a little there. But the circle did not break. The order was simple. Wait. Let them come close. 30 metres. Then fire. The Matabele surged forward again. The laager answered. Spears met bullets. Shield met wood. Chaos everywhere. And yet the line still held. The attackers withdrew. More than 400 Matabele lay dead. Inside the laager, only 2 had fallen. Nicolaas Potgieter, Pieter Botha. They were buried that same evening, out on the veld. 14 more were wounded. It should not have been possible. 40 men against thousands. Muskets against assegais. The laager went quiet. The battle was over. But the laager was not safe. Some wagons were riddled with assegais. Tents were torn to shreds. Then a grim discovery. The Matabele had taken their revenge another way. The herds were gone. 6,000 cattle, 41,000 sheep and goats. Gone. No draft oxen. No milk cows. No animals left to slaughter. Hunger closed in. Sarel Cilia's children cried for food. He had nothing to give them. Now survival depended on help. The wagons were moved 400 metres to the Renosterspruit, dragged by hand, pulled by horses. There were no oxen left. Aid came slowly. Hendrik Potgieter sent his brother Jacobus to Chief Maroka of the Barrelong and to Reverend Archbell. They sent back what the laager needed most, 200 draft oxen, food, supplies. It was enough to keep them alive. The generosity of Maroka and Archbell would be remembered for generations. But even as the laager recovered, the Voortrekkers' desire for revenge grew. In January 1837, a commando under Hendrik Potgieter and Gerrit Maurits struck back. They attacked Mzilikazi's military kraal at Mossega. They reclaimed about 6,500 head of cattle. In the months that followed, 15 or 16 settlements were destroyed. More than 1,000 of Mzilikazi's warriors were killed. By 1838, the Matabele abandoned the Marika region. They moved north, across the Limpopo, into what is now Zimbabwe. The Voortrekkers had survived. But the price had been high. They won, and still they were left with almost nothing. Like Blood River, Vechtkop was more than a battle. It was a turning point. Had the Matabele broken the Laager, had the Voortrekkers been wiped out there, the great trek itself might have ended on that plain. The survivors believed it was no accident. They called it divine intervention. Even today, historians still debate what happened. Why the Matabele commander, Kalipi, did not attack at night. Why he didn't lay siege, though he could have. Why, instead, the attack came in the open. But it did. Vechtkop became a symbol, but it never became a legend in quite the same way as Blood River. Instead, the memory lived quietly, in families, in stories, in names remembered, and in stone. On the Voortrekker monument, a relief shows Vechtkop, wagons locked together, rifles raised, a Bible held fast, courage written on every face. Today, a magnificent stone monument marks the battlefield near Heilbronn. The graves of Nicolaas Potgieter and Pieter Botha remain, silent, unmoving, witnesses to sacrifice. The hills still stand where they stood, and if you listen carefully, they seem to remember a day when a small circle of settlers, armed with muskets, prayer and resolve, faced the impossible and endured.